I found my sister's diary and discovered she'd been planning my downfall for 3 years. 3 years. Let that sink in for a second. While I was lending her money, babysitting her kids, covering her shifts at the restaurant, she was documenting every weakness, every insecurity I'd shared. Writing it all down like some twisted research project. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me back up. My name's Sarah, I'm 38, and until last Tuesday, I thought I knew what family meant. I work as a nurse at Mercy General in Phoenix, the kind of place where the coffee tastes like burnt dreams and the vending machine eats your dollar bills for sport. Been there 8 years now, pulling double shifts to keep my head above water after my divorce. My sister Melissa. God, where do I even start with her? She's 2 years younger, got dad's charm and mom's ability to make you feel guilty for breathing. You know the type, right? The one who can ask you for $50 while somehow making you feel like you owe her an apology. She moved back to Phoenix about 4 years ago after her second marriage imploded. Showed up at my apartment at 2 a.m. with her twin boys, mascara streaked down her cheeks like war paint, claiming her ex had gone crazy. Course, I let her stay. That's what family does, ain't it? That's what I thought, anyway. The boys, Jake and Tyler, they were 7 then. Sweet kids, reminded me of little tornadoes with sticky fingers and endless questions. Aunt Sarah, why do your scrubs have cartoon cats on them? Aunt Sarah, can you make pancakes shaped like Batman? They called me their backup mom, and I loved it. Made me feel needed in a way I hadn't since my own pregnancy ended in heartbreak 3 years prior. Melissa found work as a hostess at Romano's, this Italian place downtown where the breadsticks are legendary and the tips are garbage. She'd come home exhausted, complaining about entitled customers and her aching feet. I'd rub her shoulders while she vented, make dinner for all of us, help the boys with homework. Looking back, I was basically a live-in maid who paid half the rent. But here's the thing. I didn't mind. After my divorce from Kevin, after losing the baby, after watching my whole life plan crumble like stale cookies, having Melissa and the boys around filled this hollow space in my chest. Made the apartment feel less like a tomb of broken dreams. The first red flag? Her phone. Melissa guarded that thing like it contained nuclear launch codes. Face down on tables, screen tilted away during conversations, quick to snatch it up whenever it buzzed. When I asked about it, she'd laugh it off. Just work stuff, you know how crazy Romano's gets. I should have known. God, I should have known. The second red flag came disguised as gratitude. About 6 months after moving in, she started keeping a journal. My therapist suggested it, she explained, waving this leather-bound notebook with little silver clasps. Writing down my thoughts, processing everything that happened with Derek. I thought it was healthy. Encouraged her, even. Bought her fancy pens for Christmas, a little reading light for her bedside table. Sometimes I'd catch her scribbling away at 2 a.m., hunched over those pages like she was crafting the next great American novel. She was. Just not the kind I expected. The third red flag, well, that one's harder to pin down. It was more of a feeling, you know? Like when you're walking alone at night and hear footsteps that match your pace perfectly. Nothing you can point to, but every instinct screaming that something's off. Melissa started asking weird questions. Not obvious ones, but the kind that slide under your radar until later. Sarah, remember when you told me about that patient who reminded you of Mom? The one with the lung cancer? What was her name again? Or, didn't you say Kevin used to hide money in that old coffee can? Where exactly did he keep it? At the time, I thought she was just being a good sister. Remembering details, showing interest in my life. Making conversation while we folded laundry or watched TV. Making notes, more like. The breaking point came 3 weeks ago. I'd picked up an extra shift in the ICU, brutal 12 hours dealing with a pileup on I-10. Came home dead on my feet, looking forward to nothing but a hot shower in my bed. But Melissa was waiting up, pacing the living room like a caged animal. "We need to talk," she said, and something in her voice made my stomach drop. "The boys were at a sleepover," she explained. "Good thing, because what came next would have scarred them for life." "I'm moving out," she announced, just like that. No build-up, no explanation. Just a verbal slap across the face. I blinked, trying to process. What? Why? Did something happen at work? Are you okay? Her laugh was sharp, bitter. Nothing like the sister I thought I knew. I got a better offer. Better offer. Like I was some kind of business transaction. Turns out, she'd been seeing someone. A guy named Marcus who owned 3 restaurants in Scottsdale, drove a BMW, lived in one of those gated communities where the mailboxes cost more than my car. They'd been together for 8 months. 8 months. While I was helping her boys with fractions and covering her portion of the electric bill. "You've been lying to me for 8 months?" The words came out strangled, barely a whisper. She shrugged. Actually shrugged. I needed to make sure it was serious before introducing him to the boys. But that wasn't the real gut punch. The real punch came when she started talking about the apartment. See, our lease was in both our names, but I'd been covering about 70% of the expenses because, well, single mom, low-paying job, you know the drill. What I didn't know was that she'd been telling Marcus I was the one taking advantage of her. That she'd been supporting her unstable sister out of the goodness of her heart. The room started spinning. Unstable? Come on, Sarah. The way you clung to us after your divorce? The baby thing? You've been using me and the boys as emotional crutches. Emotional crutches. Like loving your family was some kind of weakness. But wait, it gets worse. She wanted me to break the lease. Pack up and find somewhere else to live within 30 days so she could move the boys in with Marcus without any complications. And here's the kicker, she expected me to pay the lease-breaking fee. $2,800. Consider it my fee for 4 years of free therapy, she said with that cold smile I was just starting to recognize. I couldn't speak. Couldn't breathe. It felt like someone had reached into my chest and squeezed my heart until it burst. That night, after she went to bed, I sat in the kitchen with a bottle of wine and tried to make sense of it all. How had I missed this? How had I been so blind? That's when I found the diary. She'd left it on the counter, probably planning to pack it the next morning. The little silver clasp was broken, pages slightly fanned out. And there, in her familiar handwriting, was my name. My name, over and over and over. My hands shook as I opened it. I know, reading someone's diary is wrong. But after what she'd just put me through, I figured all bets were off. The first entry was dated 3 years ago. Right around the time she moved in. Day 12 with Sarah. She's even more pathetic than I remembered. Still crying about the miscarriage, still bitter about Kevin. Perfect. This is going to be easier than I thought. My vision blurred. The wine glass slipped from my fingers, shattering on the kitchen tiles like my world had just shattered around me. I kept reading. Had to. Like picking at a scab until it bleeds. Sarah lent me $500 today for the boys' school clothes. She actually teared up when I thanked her. God, she's desperate for purpose. Makes me sick, but also useful. Told Marcus about Sarah's patient confidentiality violations. How she sometimes talks about her cases when she's drunk. He thinks we could use that if she ever becomes a problem. Sarah's working Christmas again. Perfect cover for Marcus to come over. The boys love him already. They'll be thrilled when I tell them we're getting a new daddy. Not that Sarah matters anymore, but it'll destroy her. She's so attached to them, thinks she's their second mother. Hilarious. Entry after entry after entry. 3 years of calculated manipulation, documented like a science experiment. Every kindness I'd shown, every vulnerability I'd shared, twisted into ammunition. But the worst part? The very last entry, dated just 2 days before our conversation. Tomorrow's the day. Sarah's going to learn what happens when you outlive your usefulness. Marcus found us a house in Paradise Valley. The boys will go to private school, have their own pool, never want for anything. And Sarah? Sarah can figure out her own life for once. Maybe this will finally force her to grow up. Grow up. Like caring about your family was some kind of childish phase you're supposed to outgrow. I don't remember walking to her bedroom. Don't remember opening the door or turning on the light. But suddenly there I was, standing over her bed with the diary in my hands, and she was blinking up at me with sleepy confusion. Sarah? What are you, is that my? 3 years, I said, and my voice sounded hollow, like it was coming from somewhere else. You've been planning this for 3 years. The confusion melted off her face, replaced by something cold and calculating. The mask finally dropping. You read my diary. Not a question. An accusation. Like I was the one who'd done something wrong. Patient confidentiality violations? Really? You were going to destroy my career? She sat up, suddenly wide awake. Only if you made things difficult. Made things difficult? I laughed, but it came out more like a sob. Melissa, I loved you. I loved those boys like they were my own. That's the problem, Sarah. They're not yours. They're mine. This apartment isn't yours. That life you built around us? Not yours either. The truth, finally. Raw and ugly and sharp enough to cut. I trusted you, I whispered. Your mistake. And that's when I broke. 3 years of suppressed rage, grief, and betrayal erupting like a volcano. I wanted to scream, to throw something, to make her feel even a fraction of the pain she'd caused me. Instead, I smiled. You know what, Melissa? You're absolutely right. She blinked, clearly not expecting that response. I have been pathetic. Clinging to a family that didn't want me. Supporting people who saw me as nothing more than a convenient ATM. I could see her calculating, trying to figure out my angle. But here's what you didn't factor into your master plan, I continued, pulling my phone from my pocket. All those patient confidentiality violations you documented? The ones you were planning to use against me? Her face went pale. They never happened. See, I've been a nurse for 12 years, Melissa. I know the rules. I know the consequences. Every single violation you wrote about? Complete fiction. Stories I made up because I thought my sister actually cared about my day. The color drained from her face entirely. But what's really interesting, I said, scrolling through my phone, is how your diary proves premeditated fraud. See, that $500 for school clothes? And the $300 for car repairs? And the $1,200 I lent you for your lawyer fees? She started to speak, but I held up my hand. All documented. Bank transfers, text messages, even that sweet thank you card you wrote me. The one where you promised to pay me back as soon as things got better. I took a screenshot of one particularly damning diary entry and sent it to myself. Things got better 8 months ago, didn't they? When you started dating Marcus. But you never mentioned the loans. Matter of fact, according to this diary, you've been actively hiding assets and income. That's fraud, Melissa. The kind that gets you arrested. She was sitting up straight now, fully awake and fully panicked. You wouldn't. Try me. And for the first time in 3 years, I felt powerful. Here's what's going to happen, I said, my voice steady now, controlled. You're going to transfer $5,000 to my account tomorrow morning. That covers the loans, interest, and pain and suffering. I don't have $5,000. Marcus does. I'm sure he'll be happy to help once he sees these diary entries. Especially the ones where you call him desperate and easily manipulated. Her mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. Then, I continued, you're going to move out by Friday. But you're covering the lease-breaking fee yourself. And you're going to explain to Jake and Tyler why Aunt Sarah won't be in their lives anymore. Honestly this time. Sarah, please. Please? The laugh that escaped me was razor-sharp. 3 years, Melissa. 3 years of please Sarah, can you watch the boys, and please Sarah, can you cover rent this month, and please Sarah, I just need a little more time. I leaned down until we were eye to eye. Your time's up. She started crying then. Real tears, not the crocodile ones she'd perfected over the years. But they bounced right off me. I was all cried out. The next morning, my bank account showed a $5,000 deposit. By Friday, she was gone. But the story doesn't end there. 2 weeks later, I got a call from Jake. Turns out, Marcus wasn't quite the prince Melissa had made him out to be. His restaurants were failing, the BMW was leased, and the Paradise Valley house? His ex-wife's, and she wanted it back. Melissa had jumped from one sinking ship to another, except this time she'd burned the only bridge that might have saved her. Aunt Sarah? Jake's voice was small, scared. Mom says we can't call you anymore, but I miss you. Tyler misses you too. My heart broke all over again. Those boys didn't deserve any of this. I miss you too, buddy. Are you still mad at Mom? Such a simple question. Such a complicated answer. I'm disappointed, I said finally. But that's between me and your mom. You boys did nothing wrong. Can we see you sometime? Maybe for ice cream? I closed my eyes, feeling tears I thought I'd run out of. I don't think that's a good idea right now, Jake. But I want you to know something, okay? I love you and Tyler very much. That will never change. Even if Mom says you don't? Even then. Especially then. 3 months later, I moved into a smaller apartment across town. 1 bedroom, but it's mine. Really mine. No shared leases, no hidden agendas, no walking on eggshells around people who see you as nothing more than a resource to exploit. It's quiet here. Sometimes too quiet. But it's honest quiet, if that makes sense. No whispered conversations behind closed doors, no secrets festering in leather-bound journals. I still work at Mercy General, still pull double shifts, still drink coffee that tastes like burnt dreams. But something's different now. The other nurses have started including me in their lunch plans, their after-work drinks. Turns out, when you're not rushing home to play backup mom to kids who aren't yours, you actually have time to build real relationships. Imagine that. Last week, I ran into Derek, Melissa's first ex-husband, at the grocery store. He looked good, healthy, like a weight had been lifted off his shoulders. Sarah. He seemed genuinely happy to see me. How are you doing? I heard about, well, everything. Turns out, Melissa had pulled similar manipulation tactics during their marriage. Keeping detailed records of his failures as a husband and father, using his insecurities against him, isolating him from friends and family who might have offered different perspectives. The diary thing, he said, shaking his head. That's new. But the emotional manipulation? The financial games? Classic Melissa. Why didn't you warn me? His smile was sad, understanding. Would you have believed me? Or would you have thought I was just a bitter ex trying to poison you against your sister? He was right. I would have chosen Melissa every time. Besides, he added, sometimes people need to learn these lessons themselves. The hard way's the only way that sticks. We talked for another 20 minutes, right there in the cereal aisle. He told me about his new girlfriend, a kindergarten teacher who thinks his dry sense of humor is charming instead of pathetic. I told him about my apartment, my newfound peace, the therapy I'd finally started. "You know what's funny," he said as we parted ways. "I used to think I was broken because I couldn't make Melissa happy. Took me years to realize that some people don't want to be happy. They want to be victims, because victims get attention and sympathy and excuses for their behavior. Victims get control. The hardest part isn't the betrayal itself. It's rewiring your brain to recognize the patterns, to trust your instincts instead of explaining them away." For years, I told myself that Melissa's behavior was just her way of coping with trauma, that her coldness was really fear, that her manipulation was really just desperation. I was wrong. Sometimes people are exactly who they show you they are. But here's what I learned, what I wish I could tell every person who's ever been used by someone they loved: your kindness isn't the problem. Your trust isn't naive. The fact that you see the best in people, even when they consistently show you their worst, isn't a character flaw. It's a character strength that the wrong people will exploit. The trick is learning to aim that kindness toward people who deserve it. People who give as much as they take. People who protect your vulnerabilities instead of collecting them like ammunition. I think about Jake and Tyler sometimes. Wonder if they're okay, if they understand why Aunt Sarah disappeared from their lives, if they'll grow up to be manipulators like their mother or victims like their aunt. Maybe neither. Maybe they'll be stronger than both of us. Last month, I got a letter. No return address, but I recognized the handwriting immediately. "Sarah, Marcus left. The house is gone. The boys and I are staying in a motel on Van Buren. I know I don't deserve it, but I'm asking for help. Not money, just... I don't know. Maybe we could talk? I stared at that letter for 3 days, turning it over in my hands like a live grenade. Part of me wanted to rush over there, to swoop in and save the day like I always had. Old habits die hard, you know? But a bigger part of me remembered the diary. Remembered 3 years of documented cruelty. Remembered the look in her eyes when she finally dropped the mask. I folded the letter up and put it in my bedside drawer. Not because I'm cruel, but because I'm finally learning the difference between love and enablement. If Melissa wants to rebuild her life, she'll have to do it the way the rest of us do, honestly, painfully, one real relationship at a time. Without me as her safety net. Some nights, when the apartment feels too quiet and the loneliness creeps in like fog, I wonder if I made the right choice. If blood really is thicker than water, if family forgiveness should be automatic and unconditional. But then I remember how it felt to read those diary entries. How it felt to realize that every kindness I'd shown, every sacrifice I'd made, every moment of genuine love I'd offered had been viewed as weakness. As pathetic desperation. And I know I chose correctly. The woman I am now wouldn't recognize the woman I was 3 years ago. That version of Sarah was so hungry for belonging that she'd accept crumbs and call them a feast. She'd tolerate disrespect and call it family loyalty. She'd sacrifice her own well-being and call it love. This version of Sarah knows better. I have a new ritual now. Every Sunday morning, I sit on my little balcony with a cup of coffee that doesn't taste like burnt dreams and I write in my own journal. Not about other people's weaknesses or how to exploit them, but about my own growth. My own discoveries. My own small victories. Like learning to say no without feeling guilty. Like making friends who invite me places because they enjoy my company, not because they need something from me. Like dating again, slowly and carefully, with a much better understanding of red flags. Like finally understanding that I don't need to be needed to be worthy of love. The other day, a new nurse started in our unit. Fresh out of school, wide-eyed and eager, the way I used to be before life taught me to be cautious. During her lunch break, she mentioned that her sister was going through a tough divorce and had asked to move in temporarily. Just until she gets back on her feet, the new nurse explained. She's got 2 kids, you know? I can't just let them be homeless. I saw myself in her face. The genuine desire to help, the unquestioned assumption that family means unconditional support, the complete inability to imagine that someone you love might deliberately harm you. I almost said something. Almost warned her. But Derek was right. Sometimes people need to learn these lessons themselves. The hard way's the only way that sticks. Instead, I just smiled and said, "Make sure you take care of yourself too. She'll understand what I mean eventually." The truth is, I don't regret loving Melissa. I don't regret helping her, supporting her, opening my home and my heart to her and her children. What I regret is not loving myself enough to recognize when that love was being weaponized against me. But that's a lesson I'll never have to learn again. Every few months, I get updates through the nursing grapevine. Melissa's working at a new restaurant, the boys are staying with Derek until she gets stable, Marcus is apparently dating someone else now. The usual chaos that follows in her wake. I feel sorry for her, honestly. Not sorry enough to re-engage, but sorry nonetheless. It must be exhausting, constantly burning bridges and building new ones, never able to maintain real relationships because you're always calculating the angle. What a lonely way to live. But that's her choice now. Just like healing is mine. People ask me sometimes if I'd do it differently, knowing what I know now. Would I have let her move in? Would I have been more guarded, less trusting, quicker to recognize the signs? Honestly? Probably not. Because the alternative, becoming the kind of person who assumes the worst about everyone, who treats love like a business transaction, who documents other people's vulnerabilities for future use, that's not who I want to be. That's who Melissa became. I'd rather be hurt by trusting the wrong person than become someone incapable of trusting anyone. I'd rather be taken advantage of than become someone who takes advantage of others. I'd rather be vulnerable than invulnerable. But I'll be vulnerable with better boundaries now. The scar tissue around my heart isn't armor, exactly. More like reinforcement. It doesn't stop me from loving, but it helps me love more wisely. More selectively. More honestly. And on the really hard days, when the loneliness hits like a physical ache and I catch myself wondering if maybe I was too harsh, too unforgiving, too final. I remember that diary. I remember 3 years of documented betrayal. I remember the look in her eyes when the mask finally slipped. I remember that some people don't want to be saved. They want to be enabled. And I remind myself that the most loving thing you can do for someone like that is to stop. The sun's setting now, painting my little balcony in shades of orange and gold. Tomorrow I'll work another shift at Mercy General, come home to my quiet apartment, maybe call the kindergarten teacher I've been dating. We're taking it slow, building something real and honest, brick by brick. No secret diaries. No hidden agendas. No countdown clocks to abandonment. Just two people who've learned that the best relationships aren't built on need or desperation or the fear of being alone. They're built on choice. The choice to be vulnerable with someone who's earned it. The choice to trust someone who's proven trustworthy. The choice to love someone who loves you back, not just what you can do for them. Simple. Complicated. Worth it. I still think about Jake and Tyler sometimes. Wonder if they'll seek me out when they're older, if they'll want to understand what really happened between their mom and their Aunt Sarah. If they do, I'll tell them the truth. All of it. But I'll also tell them that they get to choose who they become. They don't have to repeat their mother's patterns or their aunt's mistakes. They can learn from our failures and build something better. That's what healing looks like. Not perfection, but progress. And if they never seek me out? If they grow up believing whatever version of events Melissa has crafted? That's okay too. Some stories don't get neat endings. Some relationships don't get closure. Some bridges are supposed to stay burned. The important thing is that I'm free now. Free from the exhausting cycle of being used and discarded. Free from the constant anxiety of waiting for the other shoe to drop. Free from the crushing weight of trying to earn love from someone incapable of giving it. free to build something real with people who actually want me in their lives. It took me 38 years to learn that lesson. Cost me thousands of dollars, countless sleepless nights, and more tears than I care to remember. But it was worth every penny, every tear, every moment of pain. Because the woman sitting on this balcony tonight? She knows her worth. She knows the difference between love and manipulation. She knows that real family doesn't require you to diminish yourself to make others feel bigger. She knows that sometimes the most courageous thing you can do is walk away. And she's finally at peace with that choice. The diary sits in my bedside drawer now, next to Melissa's letter. Not as evidence, I never did report the fraud, but as a reminder. A lesson learned in someone else's handwriting. Trust is earned, not given freely. Love shouldn't require you to shrink. Family isn't just about blood, it's about behavior. And sometimes the people who hurt you most are the ones who know exactly how to help you heal. Because if Melissa hadn't betrayed me so completely, so methodically, so documentedly, I might have spent the rest of my life accepting crumbs and calling them love. Tolerating mistreatment and calling it loyalty. Sacrificing my peace and calling it family duty. Her cruelty freed me from my own kindness trap. Her betrayal taught me to betray my own self-destructive patterns. Her manipulation showed me what authentic love actually looks like. So in a twisted way, I owe her a debt of gratitude. Not one I'll ever pay, because she's already cost me enough. But one I acknowledge every time I choose myself, every time I trust my instincts, every time I love someone who actually loves me back. Every time I remember that I'm worth more than whatever scraps someone decides to throw my way. The stars are coming out now, pinpricks of light in the desert sky. Somewhere across town, Melissa is probably writing in a new diary, documenting new vulnerabilities, planning new manipulations. And somewhere else, her boys are learning what love looks like from a father who actually wants to be there. And here on my balcony, I'm learning what peace feels like. It tastes like coffee that doesn't burn. Sounds like silence that doesn't threaten. Feels like a heart that's scarred but not broken. Looks like a future I get to write myself. No hidden agendas. No secret countdowns. No masks waiting to slip. Just me, finally brave enough to be exactly who I am. Even if, especially if, that's someone worth loving. Ever been betrayed by family so deep it rewrote your whole understanding of love? Share your story in the comments and hit subscribe, you're not alone in this.